You are such a genuine gem. Thank you for clicking on my video. I'm Brooke McKenna, but today's case is a solved one about Thanksgiving games that turned deadly. Now, this is a day meant for family and being grateful for what you have, but one family will never have that opportunity again, all because one human decided to take their lives. And for what reason? Well, I'll let you try to figure that out. By the way, I post so much content like this. It is my absolute passion to tell these stories, and I mean no harm or disrespect when I do so. So if it's something you'd like to support me in doing, all you have to do is make sure you are subscribed with the post notification bell on, giving this video a thumbs up, and leaving a nice comment down below. I also post every Thursday at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time and the occasional surprise Sunday video. And I also want to thank all of you who have been getting the merch. You guys look so adorable in it, and I am just so grateful for all of the support. So if you would like to be featured in this little section on my channel, all you have to do is get a piece of the merch, which is linked down below, and then tag me on Instagram and I will add you here. Now let's get back to the story. So it was 2017 in Virginia, and the Gaddis family lived in a place called Chester. This was at their home at the 14,000 block of Dogwood Ridge Court. This was a quiet suburban area, and Janette and Christopher had married and settled down here. Janette was 58 and worked as a bookkeeper for a real estate agency called Napier Realtor. She had been there for about 15 years. And Christopher was 59 and a youth minister director for Grace Lutheran Church. They had been married for about 10 years after reuniting at a high school reunion, but they never dated in high school. They actually met up later on and decided they were in love. But everyone knew this family and they never had any problems with them. Christopher was known to be a kind-hearted man with a warm laugh and the type of person that would do anything for anybody. And Janette, on the other hand, was the peacekeeper who made everyone feel at home, was completely outgoing and just loud, the life of the party, and she was always laughing. They were a blended family as well, with this being Christopher's third marriage and Janet's second. Janette had 2 children who were not Christopher's children. They were from previous marriages, but they were all grown at this point and out of the home. However, it was Thanksgiving and they were looking forward to some company because Janet's daughter was a 30-year-old named Candice Kunze, who went by Candy, and was bringing her boyfriend, who was 36-year-old Andrew Buthorn, to stay with her mother and stepfather for a few days before the holidays. They were both physical therapists who had actually met at a workshop and started dating and were so in love. They wanted a little break from reality, so they decided to take some time off before Thanksgiving and stay together in Virginia with, of course, Candy's family. But it ended up being a few weeks prior to Thanksgiving when they arrived. By November 23rd, everyone was preparing for Thanksgiving feast, setting up decorations, and going to meet the families. Thankfully, the Gaddis family were already together. However, the Chester neighborhood would be startled when gunshots rang out. All of their festivities were interrupted, and the police began to get calls about the shots being fired, and then instead of having to pinpoint a location, they were actually told by the fire alarm system from the Gaddis household that something had occurred. The closest officer was only a mile away, so Officer Frazier went and headed to the home, and he got there around 11:34 p.m. Now, it was dark out, so using his flashlight, he walked up to the residence. Lying on the front lawn was a man in a blood-stained t-shirt, and he was face up with steam coming out of his body because it was so cold outside. He was completely unresponsive, and upon a closer inspection, it was found that he had been shot in the back 2 times. However, he wasn't the only victim. 2 more bodies would be found inside the home, as well as a .45 caliber Glock pistol that was lying on the small table right inside of the door. The gun was empty, meaning it had been fired 11 times, and another loaded magazine was found on the floor. But the killer, or who they believed to be the killer, wasn't hard to find. He was sitting on the front porch. He had another fully loaded magazine in his pocket as well. Officer Frazier called in saying, "I have one detained. He advised he shot 3 people. I got 1 male subject on the ground. He's got 2 gunshots to the stomach. Sir, we have 2 females down in the kitchen. Officer Frazier then forced the suspect to the ground with his hands behind his back, and all that this suspect said was that they were threatening him. They were all threatening to kill him. The suspect had also been the one to tell the officer that there were 2 more bodies inside of the home, and he also told the officer that they were all likely dead because they had all ganged up on him. The suspect confessed to the officer that he had been drinking as well, and he said he had about 3 alcoholic beverages that day. But then who they believed to be the killer was taken into custody to be questioned, and investigators told the community there was no further threat. They had the suspect in custody. Christopher Gaddis had no problem telling investigators that he killed his wife, stepdaughter, and her boyfriend. He was immediately charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder, as well as 3 counts of using a firearm during the commission of a felony. He was taken to the Ominous County Jail and was held without bond. As investigators tried to piece together what in the world happened to the Gaddis family house, they then found something interesting on Janet's phone, the wife, the mother. These were the nights that they were murdered, and these were texts about an hour and a half before they were all killed from Christopher, who was thought to be in the home at this time. These said, "Please stop threatening me. I am so scared. Please leave me alone. I am in fear of my life. I feel you want to kill me. Please let me live." He sent another saying he just wanted to live, and then another saying things like, "Stop telling me you want to kill me. Stop scaring me. And I'm so afraid." This didn't end there. 18 minutes later, the texts were still coming in. Janet hadn't responded to any of them, possibly because she was in the same house, which is strange to text somebody who's in the same house as you. But Christopher texted again, "You're hurting me. Please don't come in my room to hurt me." 30 minutes later, there was another, and he wrote, "Please don't come after me. Thanks." Then, "You want to hurt me. I'm so scared. You and Candy want to kill me." But an hour after this text message was sent, investigators arrived to the crime scene to find that Christopher wasn't the victim that he appeared to be in the messages. He was the killer. That's not all that was found on Janet's phone, though, because even though she wasn't responding to Christopher, she was using her phone. This was to text Christopher's nephew, and these were messages from Janet saying that Christopher was over the edge and that they had left him alone and he was still acting very strange, and she believed he was doing some sort of mind games. This nephew was telling her to be careful, to get out of the house. He didn't know what Christopher was doing and that they should stay somewhere else if they could. The nephew also said that he didn't believe that Christopher was scared at all and didn't know why he would say that, but he was really pushing the family to leave. He said that the more he learned about that side of his family, the less he wanted to do with them. But Janet, Candice, and Andrew couldn't leave. They didn't get the chance to before they were brutally killed by a man inside their own home, a man that was a member of their family. But investigators still weren't sure what would lead up to this. What would cause a man to do such a horrific thing? If he was really afraid for his life, or if there was something more going on. Then there was a video recording found on Candice's phone the night of the murder, and this showed them all in the kitchen, and Candice, her mother, and her boyfriend were all playing board games on the kitchen table. And then Christopher walked in with a gun. You could hear the brutal sounds of Candice screaming and being shot by her own father after her mother had been shot. And people were screaming and crying, and Andrew was seen hiding behind the table saying, "I will go out, I will leave." He was pleading to be let go, but no survivors were found. His wife had been shot first, and his daughter, and his daughter's boyfriend. Then it was found that Christopher called the home alarm company and told them to send police. The nephew was spoken to by investigators and told them that a few days prior to the murders, he was actually at the family home, the Gaddis family home, and was playing board games with them When Christopher, who was drunk, began yelling over some spilled wine, he shoved Janet while also trying to punch his nephew. And this was the same nephew who was texting Janet the night of the murders. Andrew was actually the one to step in and calm everyone down. But that was just a glimpse into how this family felt prior to the murders and what they were going through. The next video footage would also provide even more of a glimpse into the household and the possible motive. This was more footage found on Janet's phone, and this was of Christopher getting angry because Candice and Andrew were staying with them. Now, Christopher wanted them to leave and believed they were overstaying their welcome, and this was footage of Christopher talking to them while they were in the hot tub that was outside and was basically yelling at them to go away. Now, it turned out that Candice and Andrew were from Oregon but were looking to relocate to Virginia, and they were wanting to have a fresh start, so Janet was more than willing to have them in their home for a few weeks to a few months so they could get their stuff together before they officially moved into their own place. But it was speculated that Christopher wasn't on the same page. This was also the night of the murders, but around 6 p.m. when Janet was recording her husband talking to her daughter and her boyfriend in the hot tub. And even though they did have surveillance cameras outside of their property that was catching all of this, Janet felt the need to also record it on her cell phone to make sure this behavior was captured. He was pointing his finger at them, he was screaming at the top of his lungs, but there was proof that this was happening. And when the couple refused to leave because Janet was saying they didn't have to, Christopher got even angrier. Only 5 hours later, a Taurus .45 caliber semi-automatic pistol would be in his hands, and the rest of the family were playing a board game in the kitchen and had no idea that those would be their last moments alive. They were all shot in the back, and Andrew actually tried to flee through the house, and he got outside, but he fell dead in the garden after being shot. Then, Christopher simply sat on the porch and stared at him. The nephew, who was talked to by investigators, also said that Janet had told him when he had come to play board games a few nights prior to hide Christopher's gun. She gave him the gun. She said she was afraid he was going to use it and to take it home with him. So he did, but unfortunately it turned out that her gut feeling wasn't wrong, because it wasn't just a gut feeling for Janet. She knew Christopher's anger well. She did know, however, that Christopher had multiple different guns. But Christopher was still trying to claim that he was the victim in all of this, that he had only tried to kill them because they were trying to kill him. And he showed investigators bruises on his chest that he claimed were from Janette assaulting him a few days prior. He also said that he told Candice and Andrew to leave, and when he went back upstairs, he had the window open and he could hear them talking bad about him, and he was really getting angry, and he even texted Andrew saying he was sorry that he had stepped into a bad situation. But who was Christopher Gaddis? Well, he was the director of youth services of the local Grace Lutheran Church, meaning he worked with children and talked to them about how they should act and the goodness of the world that they should be creating. With his third marriage to Janette, he was said to be happy and had a great relationship with his stepdaughter Candice. Everyone saw him as kind, sweet, helpful, peaceful, but his family knew him as everything but. A few years prior to the murders, in 2012, Christopher had paid a $25 fine for a misdemeanor charge of public intoxication. Then, in 2012, he had charges pressed against him for a misdemeanor assault charge, and he had actually gotten into an altercation with a man who was a mailman, and he pulled a knife on this man, but charges were eventually dismissed after he said he would pay the man $1,000. This whole thing occurred because the mailman threw the newspaper in his driveway like mailmen are supposed to. Christopher had a temper then, and it was only getting worse, and his family began seeing it at home as well. But once this happened, the whole community was in shock because they didn't see him as that guy. They saw him as a sweet guy who worked at a church. But the rest of his family, the ones he hadn't killed, weren't surprised at all. There were actually 7 phone calls made during the time that Janet and Christopher were married to police, and one actually had to do with a disturbance over a weapon. I could not find what these other calls were about, but there were issues with Christopher and his anger, that was for certain. But I have a question for you, because I began to dive into some of the psychology behind Christopher, or what he could have possibly been suffering from or had happening to him during this time. And I would like to bring it forward not as a certainty, but more of a question and kind of something to get your guys' opinion on. So my thought, or basically my question, is, do you think Christopher suffered from delusional disorder that caused him to have these paranoid thoughts about his family, saying they were after him and feeling like the only way to get rid of them was to kill them? Now, this can be called paranoid disorder or psychosis, which can cause people not to be able to tell the difference between reality and their imagination. There are so many different types of this as well. Now, if someone believes that a person who is most likely famous is in love with them, this is a type of delusion disorder that's called erotomanic. This can begin with them stalking them, and it can lead to even worse things. But there's also one called grandiose, in which someone believes they are overly powerful and important. Surprisingly enough, there's one called jealous delusional disorder that can occur if you obsess over your own thoughts in a relationship and begin to believe that your partner is being unfaithful even when they're not. There's also somatic, where people can believe that they have a physical defect or a medical problem, but you can have multiple of these together as well. But the one we're going to be focusing on for Christopher is persecutory, and this delusional disorder is paranoia caused by a person believing that someone close to them or not close to them is mistreating them or planning to harm them. Many with this disorder will get authorities involved because they really believe someone is out to get them. But no kind of harm is normally found when it's investigated. It is really all in their own head, and this can range from theories of the government spying on them and conspiring to kill them to simply coworkers sabotaging their work projects. But it can also be that your family doesn't love you or is trying to get rid of you. Some examples of what people with this disorder would say would be things like, the government is poisoning me through drinking water, and people up on the street are spying on me and are going to steal my stuff, or those people are laughing at me. And even though they truly in their mind think that is happening, it isn't to everybody else. Some of the time, these people won't know who exactly is out to get them. They will just feel this presence or fixate on this idea. However, some do fixate on one person or one, government, one company that they believe is evil. Now, these types of disorders are said to be rare, but it can occur in your mid to late life, which could be why this was such a sudden and strange change for Christopher, and this wasn't something he always acted like. People with these disorders can function normally though, and the only thing that seems bizarre is when they are, beginning to fixate on these delusions and possible hallucinations that no one else can see. They can also become extremely angry that no one will help them or believe them, and believe that who they fear is going to get them. This could be why Christopher was getting angry at Janette and believed that Candice and Andrew were out to get him and were causing all of his problems, and Janette wasn't listening. Now, this disorder can be caused by family history, genetics, especially if a family member has schizophrenia, but it can also be biological and how your specific chemicals in your brain work. But another cause is environmental, and it can simply be triggered by stress, by trauma, childhood neglect, being in the foster care system. It can be alcohol and drug use, which is interesting because it seems that any time that Christopher was drinking heavily, these fits of anger would occur. These disorders can also be linked with impulsivity, causing them to jump to conclusions and act before thinking them through. Now, I'm not saying this is at all what Christopher was struggling with, or that people with delusional disorders could kill or would kill, but I'm just bringing you the question, do you think Christopher could have been struggling with this, and that's why he couldn't come up with a motive because he was not in a place of delusion during questioning? Or was he simply an angry man who was tired of sharing his home Or did he need treatment that was unfortunately not given to him before the tragedy occurred? Or was he just another husband who hated his life and took the anger that he had against the world out on his family? Was he jealous of Candice getting all of his wife's attention and wanted her to leave because of that? I don't know, but it's questions to ponder. Now, his church then completely disowned him, and they released a statement saying that he was suspended without pay and that there was a memorial service scheduled for the family and friends to celebrate the lives of their loved ones. They also said that the family requested privacy and not to be contacted by the media. Family friend of Christopher's said that he was always nice and soft-spoken and seemed very happy with Janette. That's why I couldn't believe it. And also the fact that Candice had never said a bad word about her stepfather. They didn't have problems like can occur in blended families. Now, Janet's work released a statement as well, saying Janette was a dedicated, hardworking member of our real estate family, and her passing has left us in a state of shock and sadness. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the families of all the victims. Now, Candice, on the other hand, she had graduated from Radford University a year prior to this from the Doctor of Physical Therapy program. And they also spoke out when they heard this tragedy occurred, and they said, "The Radford University family is deeply saddened by the loss, and we express our deepest sympathies to Candy's family, friends, and fellow Radford University alumni during their time of need." Now, her boyfriend Andrew was said to love playing golf and guitar and having a good time, and his father said he was a Civil War buff who was a unique, egg-headed, outgoing, caring, funny, kind guy, and someone who wanted to serve his fellow humans. But Janet had another child, like I told you, and he was not with them at this time because he was a grown man living in Los Angeles, and he had to learn over a phone call that his family had been killed. And when he healed through the shock, he realized he wasn't surprised. He didn't even have to be told what had happened or who killed them. Adam said that he knew deep down that this was not surprising, that he thought it was something Christopher could do. He almost expected it from him, but now Adam has lost his mother and his sister and wanted justice done. He wanted Christopher to spend the rest of his life in prison. But during trial, Christopher pled guilty to 3 counts of first-degree murder, claiming it was all self-defense. But out of all of the confessions he gave when Officer Frazier first got there, and, Christopher was just saying, yeah, I killed him, there's 2 more in the house, all of those were dismissed at trial, because the defense claimed that these statements shouldn't be allowed because he made them before he was read his Miranda rights. Now, Officer Frazier said the only reason he didn't yet do that is because he was trying to understand the situation and he had just gotten there. He didn't know it was a murder scene. Prosecutors did argue, saying that in emergency situations, a suspect is allowed to be put into investigative detention prior to being read his rights. However, the judge decided to throw out all of the statements prior to the Miranda rights, but thankfully, Christopher did plead guilty. But if he didn't, this could have been a horrible thing for the entire Gaddis family, and a horrible mistake when he freed a killer and he did it again. During this trial, the court was shown all of the footage on the victim's cell phones, as well as the body cam of Officer Frazier, what he came up upon, and Christopher refused to make a statement at trial, and the trial did end in a guilty verdict. Now, he was sentenced to 100 years for each murder at 59 years old, but Christopher still refuses to tell anyone what his exact motive was and what made him so upset at his stepfather and her boyfriend and the fact that they were staying with him. He did say, though, that he hopes that he can minister the fellow inmates and atone for what he did. But I do want to say that the fact that Janet was so afraid of Christopher, she felt the need to record her own family members' behavior is so heartbreaking to me. That shows real fear. But also the fact that she believed it wasn't yet bad enough to call the police and was just recording it when it did. So when it did get bad enough, she could show police, makes me believe that she had seen much worse from Christopher. That what he was doing that night, before of course he killed them, was something she was used to. His outbursts, his anger, the yelling, the threats, the acting like a victim, the possible delusions. She was used to it. No one should have to be used to that. This family was living in fear. most likely with PTSD from his prior behavior. And I wonder if their worst fear, what they prayed wouldn't happen, occurred that Thanksgiving night. And in the back of their minds, they had always known it could happen. And in the back of their minds, they knew that he was capable of that, but they didn't want to believe it. Janet even took care of the gun. She was taking all the precautions she could because she knew Christopher was angry, that he was a monster. But they couldn't do enough. And that's not their fault. They couldn't do enough to stop a monster because he should have been stopped before then. Today, Andrew's family, as well as Candice's real father, have actually grown together and become like a family. They're by each other's sides as they try to heal, and they really do lean on each other, which I think is so beautiful. But Christopher is still at Wallens Ridge State Prison in Virginia, locked away, hopefully forever. I really do want to hear your thoughts on this one, and if you think he was just a rotten man, or if you think he did have delusions. Part of me wants to say he had delusions, but another part thinks that that was really just his way of thinking he could get out of murder if he acted like he was the one afraid. That is the worst kind of person to me. Someone who acts like they're afraid, who acts like they have been put through so much when they're the ones causing it. I wanted to do a Thanksgiving case, not to scare you out of going to Thanksgiving with your family, but to give you content to watch today, because I know Thanksgiving can be a really hard holiday for any of you who celebrate, who are watching this. If you don't have people to be around, if you don't have the money to have a big Thanksgiving feast, not that that matters, but I know that this year is going to be even harder because a lot of us can't travel. A lot of us aren't going to go into homes and possibly infect our family members just to have a meal together. But I want you to know that I'm here for you and you're not alone today. And it is just a meal. It is just a day, and don't get too down on yourself. You are not alone. This does not mean you're going to be alone forever, and it does not mean that your life is horrible, I promise. I hope this was a source of peace for you, and if you are celebrating today, if Thanksgiving was supposed to be today for you, or if you just want to have a normal dinner, I hope you have a wonderful day. And please also know that I'm so unbelievably thankful for you. If no one in your life has told you that, I'm telling you that now because I am thankful for you. I don't know your guys' situations. I don't know if you have family around you or not. But to me, you are my family. And you're the best damn family that I could have ever hoped for. And you are so incredible to me. And I cannot thank you enough for being a part of my life. And I hope you know that you are a part of mine just as much. And I may not know all of your faces or all of your names, but I care about every one of you. And I'm sending you so much love, so much happiness, and so much comfort today and always. But if you are going to be with family or friends or whatever for today, please make sure you are being safe. You are doing your best to not spread any sort of virus or germs. You are wearing masks anytime you can. You are staying apart from people. And if you can, just stay home because it's the safest way to go. But also, if you are feeling uncomfortable in a situation where you are with your family, or you feel like someone is not in the right frame of mind, do speak out about that to other people. Don't be afraid to call for help from investigators or even just other family members. Or if you have a gut feeling you need to be picked up or you need to get everyone out, really follow that gut feeling. Thanksgiving can be a hard time, and unfortunately some people can take that out on other people, and I don't want that to be you guys. So I don't mean to scare you, just always be aware. That's all I really want you guys to know, is to always be aware of your surroundings and always make sure that you are safe and as safe as you can be in this world. And just make sure you are looking out for those people who don't care about other people. look out for them so you can stay away from them. I think that is all. Happy Thanksgiving if you celebrate, and don't ever forget to speak up. Your voice is powerful enough, and I love you to absolute pieces. Okay.